Kalimera. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to this Talking Heads. We are very, very excited to have been launching this year the first Agora XR Lab, and we had four amazing projects presenting, going through the lab and presenting this morning. And this is why we dedicated the Talking Heads this year to XR producing, because it's something new for many of us. And thank you for joining us. So in this talk today, which is called XR Unlocked, an introduction to new realities in production, moderator is our lead mentor for the Agora XR Lab, Vasiliki Konsari. She's a creative producer and writer and founder of Ink Stories in New York. And the speakers are Arnaud Colinart, producer from Atlas V, France. Kathrine Fremming, head of cultural partnerships and brand innovation, Khora VR in Denmark. And our own Konstantinos Stavrianou, producer crowd from Greece. But before we start, and also, I wanted to also say that this talk is supported by the Hellenic Film and Audiovisual Center, Creative Greece. And so, before we start, I want to introduce to you also Lazaros Boudakidis, who is the head of immersive all-around cinema. In case you haven't been to see the exhibition, it's at Warehouse C on the ground floor, open 1 to 9. Thank you. And we have also, but maybe he should introduce everything, but we have also an installation as you enter the port on your right-hand side. So you should visit that too. So Lazaros will explain a little bit what is XR. Lazaros, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for being here this morning. So before we start this Talking Heads session, we thought that we'd take a minute and talk a little bit about terminology, because it can be overwhelming, especially for people who are not in XR. So just to have everyone on the same page, very little bit of history. So here in Thessaloniki, we started our first VR section in 2018. Thessaloniki actually was one of the very first festivals to implement a section there. Unfortunately, we had to stop between 2020 and 2022 because of COVID. And then in 2025, we thought, okay, let's get back for good. We renamed the section to Immersive All-Around Cinema. There is a Golden Alexander now as an award, and it's international competition. And of course, this year, the new kid on the block is the Agora XR Lab, which we hope to be welcoming back for many, many years. Promising projects, most of them are here. So, let me go back. Okay. Very short terminology summary. Let's say that we have a couple, 2 or 3 cameras, and we shoot all around. That's a very simple way to define 360 video as a video product of many cameras. What you sometimes hear as 6 degrees of freedom or 3 degrees of freedom is mostly software-produced imagery that considers the user's head position, movement, the overall orientation. Then we all hear terms like VR, AR, MR, and the community thought that we should create an umbrella term for those, so this is what we now call XR. That's in very, very short. So XR includes VR, which is a digital environment, AR, which is digital layers over real environment, and mixed reality, which is a combination of both. But apart from the technicalities, we should also, the technical software part, we should also consider experiences in their spatial dimensions. So we have seated or standing experiences. Most of the ones we are exhibiting now at Warehouse Z are seated experiences. And also location-based experiences where you have a physical installation, usually in museum or in larger scale places. Plus, we have single-user experiences and multi-user. that's the spatial variable. And then there's the curatorial categories. So we have fiction, we have documentary, there's of course gaming, and we have some examples here. For example, All I Know About Teacher Lee is a project exhibited this year at Warehouse, so you should try that. Maybe some of you are familiar with Otto's Planet, which was also exhibited here in Thessaloniki during the last festival. Some of you may have tried Beat Saber in gaming. And From the Main Square, which was the project who won the first Golden Alexander in Thessaloniki, is considered to be hybrid because it's documentary, but with a touch of fiction. So I'll pass the floor to Vasiliki, and let's talk about production in XR.
Hello and welcome everyone. Just a little housekeeping. What we're going to do is we are going to have our panel discussion, and then we'll reserve 30 minutes at the end for Q&A. So please stay so we can have the chance to have that discussion with you. I just want to say that I'm very excited to be here with you as we talk about the convergence of how storytelling, technology all come together to create emerging new ways of sharing stories. In a video I was watching on YouTube where Hitchcock was getting interviewed, he talked about in the future we'll be able to edit our memories. And I think no other medium has come closer to this prospect than immersive arts, particularly when we think about VR and AR. Sorry, my notes keep disappearing on me. And today we look at a global VR market, which is projected by 2030 to surpass $100 billion, driven by the rapid advancements in technology, AI, and new tools. Yet the real story is, how are these tools shaping our human interaction, our expressions of creativity? And immersive media has the power to put us into the present moment, to make worlds feel both real and reimagined. And in doing so, they unleash the great potential for empathy and connection. And these are new sparks of ways that we can engage with mediums and tell stories that haven't existed before. And today we're lucky to have these tremendous panelists who represent industry leaders in these worlds. And here they are, where their creative and business models are proving how we can harness this moment to push immersive storytelling towards its full potential. We'll start off with Arnaud, who, just on a personal tip, I met Arnaud back in the days of Skype, which already dates us, and that was back in 2013 when our studio, we were working on a documentary hybrid game, and Arnaud reached out in an email and said, "Hey, can we chat?" And we found our other strange tribal member on the other side of the world in France, who was also curious about this great potential of storytelling, interactivity, technology, and documentary. So Arnaud will now share some background on his work. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasiliki. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So my name is Arnaud Colinart. I'm producer and one of the co-founder of Atlas 5, an XR production company based in Paris. And before we start, I will share a trailer of what we are doing.
It's beautiful. It's really one of the most, it's one of the most beautiful things I've been part of in 20 years. I'm not just saying that, it really is.
Thank you. So we started the company in 2017, and now we have three divisions: Astrea for distribution, and my colleague Wenshane is around at the market. Albion, our studio, and Atlas, which is the company developing IPs and concept. So most of our clients are international. We work a lot with Arte France and France Télévisions, but we'll talk about it. I guess the difficulty we could have in distribution on this market bring us much more toward American partner and tech company. But I think now, in the world we live in, we will have much more to relate to international co-production. And that's why I'm also very excited to be part of the festival this year, because I think it's the beginning of a new era of co-production for our field. We produce a lot of projects that include fiction, non-fiction, animation, a lot of different technologies, mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, art installation. We also release 3 projects for the Apple Vision Pro, and we are focusing mainly our work on developing original stories and original universe, but we also explored some partnership with IPs like Wallace and Gromit, or Mobile Suit Gundam, which is a license from Bandai Namco Film. One of the specialties of the company is that we very early on try to, what we said, package our film, which means having a casting or voiceover or everything that you can use to reach the interest of press and main audience toward XR. So that's some of the people we work with, including some directors or producers. And I think it's also an important slide because some of you could have the question of why I should do XR. There is TV series, there is movies. I think we found a lot of freedom and creative freedom working in this field, and also a lot of excitement from the talents. And I don't think I will had the opportunity to work with this talent if we didn't switch to XR and if I stayed on traditional film. So, talking about traditional film, I started my career. So I'm born in '81. I grew up in the '90s and 2000. So it was a lot of LAN parties and peer-to-peer pirating and video lagging and Winamp skin. So that was the vibe. I did some study in humanities, but also after failing for the test to become an history teacher, I entered another university that was bringing people from humanities, graphic designer and coders. And this is how I started to do interactive project, like basically CD-ROM. It was a CD-ROM. It was in 2005, and I ended being hired by a company named Agathe Filmex in Nilo. It's one of the main indie production house in France, doing a lot of documentaries or feature. And I was in charge of a TV magazine by Arte France. I was in charge of the web content of this TV magazine, part of the editorial team. And this leads me to discover all that was possible to do from a documentary point of view with internet. So at this time, it was the beginning of what we called iDoc, or web documentary. It was basically documentary with interfaces. And so it's pre-Facebook, it's at the beginning of YouTube, and at this time, Arte France was already at the forefront of innovation in distribution. And I started to develop several web documentaries with Arte about different topics. We did one about the collective memories of World Cup. We did one about the Chernobyl area 25 years after the catastrophe. We did another project mixing street art and the history of repression in October 61 during the war, the opposition between France and Algeria. In France. And when we work on that, something that was always coming over and over was, yes, but is it a documentary? Is it a website? Is it a video game? We should do video games. So some producer and Arte, especially with the National Film Board of Canada, were interested to push this video game and interactive elements. And at some point, I had been lucky to meet a creator named Théo Ledu, aka Cosmographic, who is also a former student at l'école Estienne et Gobelin, and Goblin School, and he was a student in fonts and typography. And he had this project of creating a platformer game in the fonts world. So it was really the first time I had to work and to create a video game. And I will show you the trailer. So with this game, I discover what are game engine and also new way of production, because when you produce a film, it's much more like on a waterfall model. You define the project with a script and with a shoot. The building is mainly the shoot and the editing, and then you release the film, where for video game or XR, it's much more on this iteration loop where you do constantly prototype. So this is what I had to discover doing this project. This is at the time where I'd been interested by the intersection of documentary and video game, and it is how I met Vasiliki's team, because at the time we were probably the only two projects released on this editorial aspect. And what is important in this journey is, I think, the encounter of innovation and stories can give us, as producers and creators, a lot of freedom that sometimes broadcasters can't give us. It's really painful to work in innovation, for sure, I will not lie to you, but it's also the price of freedom, in my opinion. And to mention the last project, so after this one, we had been approached by a documentary team creating a project about John Hull, a man who lost his sight around 40 and started to recording memories of what it's like to become blind. They are looking for co-producer for a feature film, and they were also looking for a co-producer to do something in the digital aspect of it. And this is how we started to develop the Notes on Blindness VR experience that is still running a lot in festival. It was inspired at the beginning by the serial podcast, because we wanted to do something around spatial audio. But in fact, after lots of prototypes, including with cats, we saw that the VR headset were bringing this immersion we were looking for, and we were really in a kind of our own private cinema. And the project moved quickly toward a VR version. And I will show you. So to go back to what Lazaro said, so it's a mixed reality project. Sorry, it's a virtual reality project, and you can move in this environment. We released it on PC, on mobile headset, but then also on PC headset, and it started. So you can see again the iteration we had from the audio to a 360 version to VR mobile and PC. We work from the script, then we create interactive script, art direction, programming, and a lot of testing, so you can find again, this iteration loop that is, I think, something that we all have in common working in XR. And I will show you the trailer.
The myriad voices and sounds create a panorama of music and information. Where there is no activity, there's no sound. And then that part of the world dies.
So the project had been released in 2016, and I will just keep some of this slide, just some of the drawing we did for the staging of the scene. So you can see it's look like much more like theater and architecture elements than a traditional creation of a film. This is what Unity looked like. It's really frightening at the beginning, and it had been released online in 2016, presented at Sundance, but also in Cannes. And Curzon, the distributor of the film, organized some screening with the feature film, but also the VR experience. So we were also trying to stay close to the cinema audiences. And what to keep in mind is that XR is really mixing elements from theater, from video game, from movies, and this is what makes this field very exciting, but also difficult. Like, it's really important to find the right words and terms to share your vision with the team. So I think that's mainly my job as producer on the creative side, is really to translate what the director wants to the team, because there is a large variety of skills in the team. You need programmers, artists, audio designers, sometimes a stage designer. So it requires a lot of coordination. And also, let's keep in mind we are in a very new medium. That's the timeline of cinema, and you can see that VR became really public and mainstream in 2014. So we are at 10 years of VR. So I will appreciate that people don't judge too hardly this medium or too soon, because we are really at the infancy of XR. And then lead us to the company beginning in 2017. And I'm really happy to share this journey with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnaud. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Atlas V's work, just to give a little context, Arnaud and his team they are real pioneers in this space and have become really a defining voice for both the creative content, but also the distribution and production pipelines that we see. And of course, they've won every award, showcased at every sort of place possible, and continue to push on the boundaries as the gold standard within the industry. So it's a real honor to have you here. And then we will switch over to Kathrine, who's coming from Khora, and equally out of Denmark. It's been an impressive opportunity to watch the trajectory of the work at Khora and how it sort of persists on the cutting edge of pushing on the boundaries in very specific spheres, from art to enterprise to interactive narratives. But I'll let you give your intro and share with the audience some of your work. Thank you, Kathrine.
Great, thank you, and thank you guys so much for having me here. It's a real honor. So my name is Kathrine Fremming. I'm the head of cultural partnerships and brand innovation at Khora. And Khora is an XR studio based in Copenhagen, working full-scale service work. So we have 35 employees, all working on different areas. We have 3D artists, programmers, project managers, business developers as myself, and also a 360 film team. And I would just like to show you some of our work, and then I can kind of talk a bit more after. So. Thank you. And I think what this show really shows is the variety of work that we do. We started back in 2015 at the point in time where we had the Oculus Rift and the Google Cardboard, and we were not really sure how to. We just knew that we loved VR and the potential of it. And so the development of the business was really to find find the value potential of the experiences, whether that was creating experiences for mental health diseases, schizophrenia, social anxiety, or doing large enterprises, onboarding videos, training and simulations, going out to space to show the overview effect and how we should all take care of our Earth. All these communication efforts really showed the potential for the immersive space and for Khora. So we work very, very broadly, and that's also a part of my role, is to find partnerships with museums, cultural institutions. We have a lot of projects shedding light on cultural heritage. Then we have the contemporary art leg of Khora as well. So we do work really broadly, and it just comes to show that immersive does really have a space in this world. Brands are always interested in innovating the way of communicating, and that's also part of my role with brand innovation, is to really show how you can use these technologies to show the mission and the vision of brands. Whether that being, we have an official partnership with Snapchat at the moment, so immersive media is really like showing the way, I believe, in the way that we communicate. So that's my brief.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Kathrine. And I've always admired Khora for its great openness, sort of in this Danish tradition of yes and the amazing amount of co-productions and the vast array of different fields of work and focus that you've been investing in the immersive space. So it's really incredible.
Thank you.
And then we have our newest convert. Welcome to the tribe. We have Constantina, who is coming from traditional film production, and she will share some of her work with us.
Hello, well, thank you very much for including me to this panel. I mean, sitting next to giants. I am the newbie. I co-founded company is Graal, and I co-founded the company actually 25 years ago, right after I graduated with my business partner, and we graduated together, and we studied computer graphics animation. We very quickly started working on cinema, and it's a production company with an in-house post-production facility. We always had a focus in cinema, features, documentaries. For the first 10 to 12 years, I was in charge of the post-production. I was a supervisor and a coordinator. We have been working on co-productions for a very long time with several territories, Middle East, Latin America, Europe. And at some point, I said, okay, I think I want something different. So at the time, we just had a film restoration project, which was with the biggest production company in Greece, with films from, it was 170 films from 1940 to 1968. And so I was the project manager of that. And then when I finished, I said, okay, I don't want anything to do with post again. So I said, okay, I will go into the production. So for the last 12 years, we are producing. We have a portfolio of more than 400 titles, and we have produced and co-produced more than 70 films, features, documentaries. And I know how I came to this world. It was through my friend Yolanda, who is a multidisciplinary artist I admire her work for a long time. And we are friends, we are mom friends, so casually over play dates, she was always telling me what she was doing. She's doing like a million stuff, like theater performances. So she told me that, you know, I found a note from my great-great-grandfather that the last note that he gave to his wife the night of the Great Fire in Izmir in 1922. So, like, okay, it was like I knew that she came, her family came from there. And being a very smart woman as she is, she started moving towards it. So 2 years ago, she was here presenting Paradise Lost. And in the beginning, I was not involved, but you know, 2 days before she presented it here, she, you know, called me and said, you know what, I have to present it something. Do you mind, like, you know, checking the pitch and telling me what I do with it? So I did it, like, and then a few months later, like a couple months, she said, you know what, I need a financing plan. Would you mind, like, with an international financing plan? So I said, okay, yeah, sure, I will do it. So on and on, very slowly, I started to get to know what she wanted to do. And of course, I was fascinated with the story because it was such a personal story of her family. And as a Greek, it really hit a chord in me because we grew up with the immigrants from Minor Asia. So she said, you know what, I have done this before. She already had the first VR. And Arnaud asked me a few days ago what really drew me into this. And I think it was like a love at first sight. I had spent so many years with the directors, with the authors, like trying to see how do we engage, how to make it more personal, and then I just put, you know, the goggles, and I was like in the story, living it, being there. And then Yolanda educated me through one of the co-productions that we had to attend. So I was Emperor, and I became more and more enthusiastic over this medium that I didn't know much about. So when she was here, Yolanda, she presented the project, and she had meetings with several labs, and luckily enough, she met Stella Davara from CPH. And I will tell you a few notes on actually how we are so far. And Stella, who is like a great supporter of Paradise Lost from the very beginning, she asked her to apply, and the project was developed at the CPH lab. And before that, it was, she got, at the end of Thessaloniki, she received an invitation to attend to Bell Dogs, where she was there and she discussed also. And it was on probably one of the financing plans that I had to make. And then she calls and says, you know what, I want to apply to IDFA, but if they take me, you will come in with me. I'm not doing this alone. So we ended up going to IDFA, and before that, she, like a month before, says, you know what, before IDFA, we will go also to Geneva. All these markets that I had no idea. that existed in this world. So when we were at IDFA, we met our Dutch co-producer, who is also from the VR world, but what happened is that we knew that the financing would be kind of complicated, as there is not a solid system. Before going to the markets, we applied. There was a new temporary fund for immersive new media at the Greek Film Center, and we applied. There was also a very small one from the Ministry of Culture for new technologies. So we were very lucky because we accessed those two, and these were really the key to everything that happened afterwards. Because I knew that Yolanda, she met with developers from Germany, from Berlin, and she wanted to work with high road stories. So we had to find a way how to work with them, and that would be, to have a German co-producer. To my surprise, I called several friends from the film industry, and I asked them, do you know what? I am producing this VR piece. Would you like to see? I know that there is a funding in Berlin. And they said, no. No, we are full, it's new, Constantina, no. So anyway, we found a solution. And we applied for the development. And luckily enough, we got supported. And actually, we could start the journey. I will share a few screenshots from where we are right now. So it's we have a
Is this a sneak peek? Sneak peek?
It's a sneak peek. It's an ongoing production. We are taking baby steps because I'm new to this, so I wanted to make sure that I know what I'm doing as much as possible. So it's a story about her great-great-grandfather, who was a political figure and a newspaper publicist. And he was brutally murdered the night of the Great Fire. The piece is a mixed reality experience, which is divided in 6 chapters. We are having a lot of animation and a lot of archival material which belongs to several countries, not only in Greece. So we are trying to get to see how we will manage with that. Here's some drawings from our book of our idea is to be able to navigate through Izmir before the fire and get to know the life before, and to reach the end of this paradise. What I think I forgot to mention, that of course we are, you see, Yolanda is an Onyx member. So we also had the support of the Onassis Foundation in New York, which helped a lot creating, and still helps a lot. And yeah, I mean, for me, it was everything that was there. It happened for a reason, and we were able to reach this far. We are very happy because we just received the production funding also from Median Board, and now we will start, complete the Greek financing in the next months to see how we can get some private money. Yes, so that's it.
Thank you. And I think, amazing story. And I think we'll touch later and really lean on you to, I'm sure there's a lot of interested artists, filmmakers here who are very curious to understand the Greek landscape in the immersive space. But first, maybe we can start off with Arnaud, and maybe you can tell us with sort of the wide swath of projects that you've worked on across such a long period of time in this very small period of time of immersive arts. Maybe you could tell us about sort of the changing, across the changing landscape, of course, your role as a producer and how that's changed, and how both in your sort of approach to production, but in your taste and the kind of projects you look to partner with.
Yeah, so I think, Konstantina, you said there is no solid system for financing of VR in Greece, but I think it's in general, we are more in a fluid system. So you can really have like what we could say creative accounting. That will be a skills to have. There is money all around the world, but there is no really national market big enough to support production or cost outside of US and China. So as European, we have to look at international co-production, we have to look at international market, and the most difficult is to not lose what makes the specificity of the story you want to develop. In TV, where you have a local market, in theater or movies, you have a local market. In VR, it's an international market. So it's already the most interesting and difficult part is to find the balance between international appeals and specific stories. Institutions like Onassis or other institutions like that, or the CNC in France in the development, are helping us to prototype this project with specific voices, and then as a producer, we are trying to find some hooks for audiences and partners. I think one of the difficulty right now is that when we started 2014 or even toward 2018, tech companies invested a lot in content and in narrative content. Right now, the market of VR, which is mainly on the MetaQuest store, so it's the headset of Facebook, so it's around 6 million users monthly around. So it's not huge compared to other industry. And they are really focusing on video games. So we left on the side the location-based entertainment that Kathrine mentioned. At Atlas, we are really more focused on online distribution. And because of this shift toward video game, which is not the only thing we are doing and the only thing we want to do, we have to try to reconnect with the location-based market, which means more like a kind of theater models. It's much more complicated to integrate and to run, but you can reach an audience, you can reach a specific audience, because you have people who are interested by scientific films or social subject, where on the store, what is appealing is the smaller common denominator, so cats, mainly. And this is not why we came to these fields. You know, we at the beginning, it was really a place where we had a huge freedom, editorial freedom. We had amazing relation with broadcasters at PBS, Arte, who were also doing some different things from what the TV was doing. And right now, I think we are in this phase of rebuilding this network, mainly through location-based, but also through international co-production and European co-production. So basically, right now, that's what occupied our strategy, is how we rebuild an editorial voices. And I mentioned Typewriter because one of the discussions we had when we did Typewriter is why Arte or Agathe Film will do a video game. The reason is because if Arte or Agathe Film or the CNC don't finance this game, you will have on the store only franchise and commercial game. The same reason, if there is no investment from the Hellenic Film Center or from the CNC or all these public institutions, it means that this technology, which is one of the most incredible technology I experienced, as you said, since the birth of the iPhone, will be full of the vision and of the editorial value of countries that are not European, and and this country seems to share less and less our views on life and on the world and on values. So I think from a politic perspective, it's really important to not just let these countries and this tech company create one type of content to push their headset. But it's true, we'll have a difficulty in distribution, the audience is not already there, but I think it's politically extremely important for the future to come.
Thank you for that. I think more and more as we read the news, we see the danger of that potential taking place. So we are very grateful to France for upholding some sort of value system. And I guess that makes me have a question for you, Kathrine, and understanding in Denmark, what is sort of the cultural funding landscape look like, and how is that shifting and changing? And is the film world in one silo and the immersive world in another, and games in another, and where do they sort of meet?
Yeah, sure. So I think a couple of years ago, we were all now 5 years ago, we were all talking about, during COVID and all this, we were talking about the metaverse, and we saw a lot of attraction to XR, and now that has kind of shifted. There's more attention to AI rather than immersive media. So we definitely feel the shift as a company being funded by public funds as well. So in terms of the landscape right now, we've been funded historically a lot by the Danish Film Institute, which are the co-productions that we go to festivals with and kind of do our more contemporary artwork that's not as profitable as when working with brands and so on. And these days we're seeing a shift in the interest of immersive media. So it's not to bring any negative vibes around that, but it is getting quite challenging. We've, as I mentioned, been funded for interactive documentary. Now that's moving a lot more into games. So we are seeing a shift in the wish to produce content, and as Arnaud also mentioned, there's definitely an interest from the commissioner's side to see interactive game in a way that's, more of a video game style, I would say. And of course, the market is still quite small. But then again, we're also getting funded by the Danish Art Council to kind of merge art forms. So merging performance and theater with mixed reality, location-based projects. We also see a will to experiment with social platform, VR platforms like VR Chat in a performative space with theater directors as well. So we're seeing a shift in the interest, but more towards interactive games, but it is getting more difficult in Denmark as well, as we see on the whole scale. And then again, Creative Europe are really investing in innovation and in new projects that are not, not per se art projects that are ready to go out into festivals, but are investing in innovation and creating new productions and new ways of being together in an immersive space and multiplayer, and trying to scale out to scale the immersive space in a larger context.
So you see, even within this sort of emerging technology space like VR, AR, there's still a mission on behalf of the funding bodies to continue innovation with new tools like AI. And is that a lot of pressure for a studio like Khora to constantly not only be on the cutting edge, but on the bleeding edge, where it's like you're sort of using speculative technologies? And so I can imagine that's quite complicated.
Yeah, definitely, because we constantly have to adapt to the landscape. So as of right now, we're investing a lot, or self-investing a lot of hours in for the production to test new ways of creating with AI. So, but it's also a way of investing in the future, you can say, because with new AI tools we can also be way more effective than we've been before. But we definitely also see it from the client side. They're requesting it a lot more. Like, we're not even in a phase of pitching it to clients yet, because they're coming to us and and demanding it. So that's why we kind of have to adapt, and that is both challenging because the budgets are not following the innovation and the time that we have to put into it.
Thank you. And I guess, Konstantina, it would be amazing to hear, what is the landscape here in Greece, and has Greece been an early adopter in the immersive space? Are there dedicated funds, or how would a producer approach the funding landscape here in Greece?
As I said, we were lucky because the fund, there was a fund that ran for a year, which was not big, but it was substantial to create and to start working. I mean, without this, we wouldn't be able to do any of the things that happened afterwards. There is not the production support, but they are open. However, the situation in Greece is not difficult only for the XR. It's in general, the funding. There is not enough support, which is they are trying, but it's not that they are into consideration, they are aware, and they are considering opening. It is considered something to be in the future to happen. Apart from that, then it's the Onassis, who is a major player in this regard and a great supporter. There are several calls for artists to access directly, and programs to develop. There are residencies, and so there are some tools to start, I think, and then private, according to the piece that one wants to create, to attract education, health, whatever is this. So this is how it is set up right now. And then, of course, it's also very Creative Europe, but it is, it depends on if there is experience and who can access that. So I would say, all in all, this is it.
And within that sort of landscape, do you feel like there's particular areas of immersive arts that are of greater interest, or can attract more money or attract more co-productions, whether it's...
I am optimist. I am in general an optimist. So I think that when there is a will, there is a way.
Yep.
And so far, my experience has seen this in several parts, not only in XR, but in general. So I think that it's something that it will have a great future in Greece. Right now, there are still behind. It's more following what is happening to the other countries and how to check. And I think it's something that we will have more and more in the future.
Yes, and it's so interesting because, you know, when we talk about immersive arts, it's really just an umbrella that we're kind of self-defining. And I think, you know, having worked in immersive arts for like close to or more than 10 years, it's still a challenge to really define and put up the lines around that world. Arnaud, in your experience in working with people coming from fields of visual arts or filmmaking or documentary filmmaking or game developers, do you see that one sort of discipline has more of a natural fit? And I guess when I'm speaking about this, maybe more in terms of the director or the artistic overall look, like what areas do you find these directors are most coming from?
I think the teams or profile that are the more plug and play, if I can say, to XR are people with experience in animation and VFX, but I will say mainly animation, because in the way you work in XR, when you are not using 360 camera, but you use a game engine, there is a lot of process of storyboarding, 3D modeling, texturing, lighting. So then it depends if you are going for a game or something more narrative. But I think the people that I saw switching more easily to XR are people from animation, also because they are used to work with big teams. Sometimes it's difficult for fiction director or documentary director because they have a feeling that they are losing the control of the project. I spend a lot of time explaining that no, the head of animation don't want to be the director, it's just the head of animation. But also I really like working with artists who have a strong vision that sometimes can be totally in opposition of the medium. Like I want to do plenty of cuts and I want to have blurs, etc., which are complicated, if not something to avoid in VR. But if you have a director who are open to discussion and changes, this is where you can really do a groundbreaking project. Most of the time it was with female director, maybe because they are listened more. But
yes.
I think there is when you have people who are like can really stubborn. I work with directors who refuse to watch any VR project to stay like pure.
Preserve their naivety.
It was a nightmare. So you need to pick directors who are open to discussion, or it will be complicated. Maybe Kathrine, you have the same experience.
Yeah, I was just wanted to kind of add that it's also when working with artists, in my experience, theater directors or people working in immersive theater, they tend to really get the medium straight away, because there's something about breaking the fourth wall in VR that theater people really tend to understand. Both in producing, the difficulty of raising money is one thing, is also difficult in theater, but understanding the audience in a way and putting the audience in the shoe or the POV of the experience, or right in the middle of the experience. So that's really my experience, and also my segue into to new media and the VR space. So I just wanted to kind of add that filmmakers obviously have a quite smooth segue into VR, but especially theater people, they really get also the distribution model of VR at this stage.
I agree. I mean, Yolanda, she's a theater director mainly, and in the beginning I had it was the opposite kind of, because when she tried to explain to me, because Paradise Lost will also have a performative part, and I was like hesitant of exactly how is it going to work, and how are we going to make it in terms of, you know, in the future and distribution, and how is it going to. But I'm lucky because I'm someone who actually enjoys watches the others' work a lot. She's very much up to date to what's happening to the VR scene.
Mm-hmm. Thank you to the Yolandas. And so when you do these partnerships with people who don't have any sort of VR previous background, is there a way in which you approach the production with them that is any different? Do you team them with creative producers or artistic teams that can help support this sort of immersive vision, which places the audience at the center?
Yeah, so I think the most important part of getting clients or collaboration partners to understand the medium is just to try it. To try a lot of different stuff, to try 360 video, to try experiences where you are, where it's a linear experience, you're fixed in 3 degrees of freedom. You can, and then being in interactive experiences, what works and what doesn't work, and also really getting, you know, trying VR works that has been that's referencing what they're trying to do in some way, and in that way starting a creative conversation. And that's usually how we work at Khora. It's just a lot of workshopping, a lot of telling about the medium, of course, and telling what kind of models there is to work with, and how production process are working, and how we work, of course. But most importantly, you just need to try it, and you need to try a lot, and see the different hardware solutions as well. Yeah.
I think that's really proper advice, and also I'm hoping everyone is aware, but there is an XR exhibit here at the festival, and I encourage you to check out all of the experiences. So that's, I mean, that's, you know, sort of a snapshot of the landscape of production. When we move into the territory of distribution, I know that the immersive space is just like a hungry child, and constantly looking for new possibilities and ways to find its audiences. Are you seeing one particular model that is working, or... Oh, are we going to open soon? Okay. Should we maybe ask this question and then we can move to Q&A? Thank you, Rafaela. I know my timing counting is not the greatest, but I think distribution is such an important part. And I know when creating immersive work, not only are you putting the audience at the center, but you have to already start thinking about your distribution models, because it's not a natural fit like, well, of course it's going to either the big screen or the small screen. This has a number of different possibilities. So, Arnaud, how are you guys thinking about distribution?
So, first, if you are working, if you are working with a game engine or 3D, but also if you are working with a 360 video, you have the possibility to imagine other formats of distribution for your project. It could be online, it could be LB, it could be video export through the game engine, it could be DOM. So we see that more as different windows of exploitation of the same project to try to create a revenue. Then I think the difficulty is that online distribution, it's basically like putting a drop of water in the ocean. There is 8,000 VR game on Steam. There is probably 10 times that on the MetaQuest store. So the marketing is really important, and you have to market your experience as a video game, so which means working with TikTok influencers, which means working with YouTube influencers, at least for the online part. This is what our company, distribution company Astra, is doing. For the location-based, which is not a territory we are exploring too much, we are open to collaborate with other distributors. There is Agatha from Diversion, who is a great distributor also in France. There is Khora in Denmark. So we are also, for DLB, looking at companies who have more experience than us in terms of managing a technical aspect, a network of theater or institutions who are ready to organize ticketing. So, and then there is the technical aspect of it. How many headsets, what kind of headset, how many spare headsets, what the duration of the battery, because at some point we produce films that were longer than the lifetime of the battery. So it's like you do a film, but the theater switch off before the end of the film. So you really have to take in consideration the technical landscape of the project you are doing. And there is solution, but my recommendation is like just raise hand and ask for help, not die alone under your desk.
Don't die alone. You can quote him on that. And I mean, that doesn't even take into consideration the post-technical support and then the archiving and then when certain headsets and hardware becomes obsolete. So how do you protect yourself and the work? I guess Kostandina, as someone who's jumping into this space and really confronting some of these both challenges and I think it's really important to point out opportunities as well. How do you think about distribution?
It's her work is in Greece. I don't think it will be, it will be in a way easy because it's first of all the subject is quite big. And her work is well known. I mean, her previous VR, which was a multi-user, how many months was it in Benaki Museum? 3 months? 3 months, and it was run for 8-10 hours, and there were every half an hour there were new, and they extended it. So. We are aware of the difficulties and the limitations. I don't have the experience of actually finishing the piece and going to distribute it. It's something that we have for the time being in our mind. And how we approach it and when we were talking to our partners outside of Greece, it is a subject that it is actually can touch a lot of educational, historical elements, so it is kind of interesting for them as well. However, when the time comes, let's see how, what will be done.
Yeah, a lot of creative producing, and that's what's necessary. But like we said, these are opportunities as well, because if you build it, hopefully they come. And how much a part of the distribution landscape is Khora's work?
So it's actually it's quite a lot part of my work specifically working with cultural partnerships. I work with museums, cultural institutions, and artists. But I would say more so when working directly with independent artists, it's more of a consultancy kind of project, and where we try to support with application writing and to kind of support the artist with our network of cultural institutions. So definitely it's a really big part of it. It is a lot of work from from Khora's side, also trying to keep the numbers straight. But it's a huge part of our work, and it's also sometimes we get funded by Creative Europe to actually be supported in the all the artworks that's supported by European Commission as well. There is also a kind of a dissemination leg of support, which is obviously really important as well. Yeah.
So before we go into Q&A, I think, you know, as we have these incredible experts up here, we can ask for one piece of advice for people who are interested. Arnaud's like, I already gave it. Don't die alone. What is one piece of advice you would give to people maybe across disciplines, producers? Here we're at a documentary film festival. What piece of advice would you give for people who are interested in participating in immersive arts?
In fact, I will say that you may, I mean, as artist or producer, you are maybe interested in this field or for different reasons, including potentially you want to diversify your business, and there is some opportunity. But I will say just like stay yourself and bring something to this field. What is exciting is that there is a room for new voices, because we are still at a time that if you organize well your time, you can watch all the production that exist on Earth on a medium. We are at this time. If we are well organized enough, you can see all what exists. In which area of creativity you will be able to watch everything. Okay, honestly, it's going to be boring at some point, but I think like you have an opportunity to make your voice and story exist in this field with much more impact, in my opinion, on the audience because of the technology, but on the editorial field that it's starting to build. So stay yourself.
That's great.
I mean, I would agree to this. I mean, I think it's important to see what is out there, to see the different approaches. MR, VR, AR. So, I mean, my advice would be this, and see where you stand. We know how you feel when you are doing this.
Yeah, and I think I would just add to that and say that try to figure out what is the best medium for your story, and not the other way around. Choose your story first, then the medium, because that has the best potential for your storytelling. So really finding the value potential of the media when you're working with XR. And also, I would say that immersive media has so very strong storytelling potential, but you're probably not gonna get rich.
Not yet. Until 2030, right? And I guess if I were to give some advice, it's you know, what's really exciting about being a part of an emerging movement is the community is still small and really approachable. So I think when you go to film festivals, when you go to labs, there's the opportunity to meet people who are very open and willing to share information. So I would say take advantage of that. And along those lines, there's labs, there's opportunities to get involved. And even if you feel like maybe your project, you've never thought about it in an immersive way, just by nature of filling out these applications, it really starts to allow you to think in this way. And that in and of itself is an exercise in the right direction. But let's open up the questions to the group. So is there a microphone or, yeah? Okay.
So we only have 5 minutes, so we'll take a couple of questions.
I didn't realize we've run so late. Okay, 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. Thank you for a very interesting conversation. I'm interested in like thinking of how to bridge a gap between, I guess, exhibition, mostly physical exhibition, and the production, because as Arnaud said, it's an emerging market. We have labs coming up. We have like public funding coming. I head a cinema department of an arts institution, and like what I what I feel from my perspective is like a lack of experience from myself in like creating, programming those kind of like projects and like getting the budgets and like, you know, there's no like traditional distribution as we know it. And so I'm just interested as producers from the four of you, or maybe from one because we don't have time, like what's the main frustration that you feel, or what's the main lack like the industry is currently having in like getting those projects like to the main audience outside like these niche festivals like here, or like a museum piece, you know, like how do you get it like more kind of physically shared across like physical spaces, and what's like, is it public funding that's lacking? Is it like an actor of the industry that's like has not yet emerged, or what's the main role you face when you try to get this project out there?
It's a discussion we had during the lab. There is money out there because hopefully in Europe there is some support for creativity and innovation. But what we really lack is private money. And the reason is like, it's because there is a small market. So when there is a small market, there is less private money. So most of the time what we need to unlock XR, but also public fundings, is private money. So we are spending a lot of time to try to discuss with brand, international partners, to find this, even if it's not important amount, this private money, who are most of the time connected to revenue, business model, distribution, mechanics, are really the most difficult things to find. And then, at least from a French perspective, and I know we have a lot of chance to have all this support from the state, there is a really weird situation where animation has a tax credit, fiction has a tax credit, documentary has a tax credit, video game has a tax credit, but XR, that is in between all of that, don't have a tax credit. So so we are spending a lot of time to do, in my opinion, silly lobbying to explain why this project is a video game, to try to have the video game tax credit, or why to explain why it should be open to VFX, etc. So, but in a time where there is less money for culture and creativity, of course, everybody is fighting for their own line of business. And it's definitely not in the favor of a field that is something much more larger than animation or documentary or fiction, because it's a new form factor in storytelling, in my opinion. I hope it's answering your question.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I have so many questions, but I'll stick to one. For the beginning of the production cycle, I think Vasiliki and Kathrine, you touched upon it briefly. How do you make sure that the connection between topic, subject, and medium is the best for immersion and impact?
Yeah, it's always a difficult process when clients comes to us with an idea that we might not feel like it's the best fit. But an example can be, we had a commercial client last year that wanted to do user manuals in AR, and that's super great, and we saw the potential in that. But then when we started testing and prototyping the production, we figured out together with the client, okay, we need to move it somewhere else, because you can't actually hold a handheld device while you have to assemble something. So it's a matter of in the production process, when you're doing really innovative processes or productions, to kind of put in the budget to do a prototype first, do a vertical slice, and then do a lot of user testing as well, because then you can figure out afterwards, okay, was this the right way, or should we just do a 3D rendered YouTube video instead, because that's easier for the user to assemble a physical production. Yeah, so in the process we always try to do the workshopping first, where the client really gets to know the medium, because when they know the medium, then they can better see the potential for themselves, and then also, of course, having a prototype is the best way to go before scaling it out. Yep. Where's the mic? Oh, there.
Hello. Thank you for the conversation. So I would like to ask, having experienced XR and its dynamic and possibilities closely, do you think that maybe in the next years or decades or whatever, there's a chance of it like kind of taking over or replacing or changing the classic cinema narration as we know it today?
My God, I hope not. I mean,
I think it's sort of the age-old question: will one make another obsolete? Right? Will photography make paintings obsolete? Will the printing press make
coexist? Yeah. I mean, it will just evolve, but the one will not cancel the other. I mean, it's
right. I mean, you see like teenagers walking around with Walkmans, listening to cassettes. I think there's always an interest to experience art and storytelling through these different mediums. I do believe that spatial computing is the future, and it will be. I mean, if you're asking, will we no longer have iPads and iPhones and laptops? I don't think we will. I think we will exist in more of like a spatial reality, and those will be the tools that we rely on. But I do believe the power of cinema will last long and far.
But also innovation within the cinema. We've just seen some example from the Apple Vision Pro. They created a short film fiction called Submerged. I would, do a quick Google and see the trailer on YouTube if you don't have access to Apple Vision Pro, which not many people do. But that kind of shows the potential in new forms of cinematic storytelling and the high fidelity in immersive cinematics.
So thank you all so much. Big thanks to our panelists today. Thanks so much for coming. Kind reminder, the XR exhibition at Warehouse is open from 1 to 9 daily, and we would love to welcome you there. Thank you.
Thank you so much.